For more on that story, I'm joined by Ayo Johnson, political analyst in London, on the phone. Ayo Johnson, welcome to the program. The war of words between Mr. Mugabe and the opposition leader is intensifying ahead of next week's runoff vote. Where's Zimbabwe headed under the current circumstances?
Well, that's the big question. Where are we leading? Where are we going with all of this? In principle, there's a lot of tension. Emotions are high, naturally leading on to the elections. It's only normal and natural. But it's been fueled naturally by the interference by Western governments, namely Britain and the United States, and more so about the media trying to show that Mugabe in a demonized fashion. But the reality on the ground is that there has been some intimidation from both sides, be it MDC or ZANU-PF, and that has been exacerbated by the pictures and the stories we've been reading within the media. But in saying that, the responsibility lies squarely on SADC for them to take ownership and responsibility to ensure that we have free and fair elections. The accusations that we've heard thus far has been that the MDC has said that the ZANU-PF are preventing them from rallying with their supporters and campaigning for elections. But the truth is that they've gone through the appropriate measures, which has gone through the courts, and the courts have allowed them to demonstrate and to rally in aid of the election. So I think a lot of this is about politics. A lot of what we're hearing is about speculation, and the reality is that the situation may not be as bad as we're hearing it at the moment.
Now, Zimbabwean officials are alleging that the main opposition party, the MDC, is acting in the interest of Britain. What role does Britain play in the country's political crisis?
Well, as we know, Zimbabwe was a former colony, and Mugabe was their first democratically elected president, and he's always been a thorn in the side of Britain, purely for those reasons. The fact that he was a war hero, he fought through the Rhodesia era, and of course Britain has never forgotten that. The problem is that he's always been there. He's never really left power. And successive elections, he's won them. And I think Britain would otherwise prefer that he wasn't around. But the man, being a strong, vibrant war hero that he is, he's always stuck to his guns. And somehow he's been able to camarade his people to support him. The MDC has been seen like a puppet opposition because they're predominantly supported and financed by European nations, and Britain being one of them. So there's always this tension which lies in the air. But the reality is that Mugabe has suffered as a result of his strong stance against Europe and Britain. There's been a lot of sanctions imposed on himself and the economy, and the economy has suffered. The local people have been disgruntled, and of course his land reform, which has been the pivotal reasons why Britain has actually showed their anger towards him, has flied in the face of Europeans, because it has meant that the land which was once owned by Africans were now being put back in their hands, and of course Europeans were being left either without the land or without the income they were completely used to.
You certainly don't sound like you have any sympathy for the MDC. As the final question, Mugabe has blamed the Western sanctions for the country's economic crisis. Why would the international community continue to impose an embargo that would kill Zimbabweans?
Well, again, this is all politically motivated. The objective is not necessarily the Zimbabwean people themselves, but more or less to squeeze Mugabe into a corner, because if he can't get aid, if he can't get trade, if he can't get loans from the World Bank, if his financial systems are restricted in the manner it has been, then naturally it will impact on the economy, it will impact on those that are living within that society, and they're expecting those that are living with that society to stand up, rise up, and create some uprising. But that hasn't happened to date. It has meant that Mugabe would have to look to the east, because if he can't get income from the West, if he can't get support from the West, then the Eastern Bloc countries will have to help him, namely China, India, Iran and others. And of course, that will be his only opportunity.
Ayo Johnson, political analyst in London. Thank you for joining us.